Good morning, everybody. Every Friday, 9 o'clock Pacific, Mortgage Coach Mastermind Group. If you are watching this video or if you are live right now, make sure you're also in our Facebook group. We've got a private Facebook group called Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind. And it's been a great week, you know. I mean, first of all, it was 4th of July, so hopefully everybody had a great 4th. How about you, Todd? You have a good 4th of July?
I had an amazing 4th of July. You know, we've traveled the last number of years and we haven't been home. So it was just nice to actually be at home. We said we were going to have a party of 3, just me, my wife, and the one daughter who wasn't in New York. But we spent the most day with my parents as well. So it was a blast to have a low-key day. So hopefully all of you did something fun. You know, in Phoenix, it was 115 yesterday. It was really nice of my good friend and one of our mentors, Coach Bill Hart, to post in there that was 115 here. And so it's most people in Phoenix are actually in California right now at the beach. And we used to always go to California, but literally you'd walk down the beach and every other person was one of your neighbors or someone from school. So we've chosen to avoid the California beaches and go somewhere different each year. So here we were at home. It was kind of nice. So. But excited to be here with all of you guys today. So thanks to those of you who are not on vacation or on vacation and still logging. And it's great to see all of you here. And Dave and I are excited to deliver some value. And if you notice, I got new surroundings behind me. This isn't the actual background I'll normally use, but I'm in my official new office this morning while there's a lot of chaos and moving around me. So I'm excited to have a little different point of view this morning.
Good. Well, hey, congratulations on the new office space. I'm looking forward to seeing that evolve, and I'm looking forward to creating some content with you when I'm out there. So Mortgage Coach, I posted a question yesterday in our Facebook group saying, hey, do you have some questions or some topics that you would like Todd and I to talk about today? And Jen Duplessis recommended that, hey, has everybody done a semi-annual review, kind of a mid-year review? Someone else asked for some sales strategies around getting business from realtors. Robert Ring had a really cool comment yesterday about a script from Jeremy Forcier. And then I've also made some significant edits to the lead conversion playbook. So those are some of the topics that we're going to cover today. If you're on this call and you are live and you either need to be unmuted and you want to share or ask a question, let us know and Todd and I will bring you in. But I think what we'll do is we'll kick it off around, you know, mid-year planning. So I want to push a poll question right now, asking, just get a feel for how many people on today's call have done a mid-year business plan review, where you kind of, hey, I had my goals in January. It's June, July. I've reviewed them and I've reset them. So please post right now, answer the poll question, yes or no. Have you done any mid-year planning yet? Answer the question, yes or no. Marcy, has that question gone up yet? Looks like we may be having some challenges getting the poll question. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Have you completed mid-year review? Just real quick, guys, 30 seconds, yes or no. We will share the results with you. So just at about 30 seconds, we'll push that up there. And then remember, guys, the way that this mastermind is valuable, whether you're on Facebook Live or whether you're live in Zoom, the more participation we have from the audience, the better. So please, if you have questions, if you have topics, Todd and I are ready to roll and ready to answer them. Let's see, yeah, we got some folks on Facebook Live. What's up, Facebook Live? If you could post in comments where you're at, it's amazing how many parts of the country we have covered here. And then Marcy, if you can go ahead and push the results so Todd and I know yes or no. So it looks like 70% said no, Todd. So it looks like, you know, hopefully one takeaway people get out of this conversation today is you need to do some mid-year planning. You need to look at where your goals are at, readjust, recalibrate, or maybe it's just celebrate and keep on doing what you're doing. But, you know, let's plan a review. So Todd, why don't you kick this topic off, you know, being the founder of Win by Noon. And I bet you have some ideas on how people could effectively do this mid-year planning.
I've got some great ideas, and I know some of you who are on here were on the webinar I threw together the other day on Monday around this topic. So I'll do a couple of things. Number one is I'm this morning I was trying to last minute sort of throw up a value add for all of you, which would be a recording of that webinar. I will commit to have that done over the weekend. I have to wait for a little technical advice on making sure I can do it correctly. But I'm going to give you guys a copy of that webinar. I'll post it up in there so that you get more detail, because I don't want to go deep into it right now when I can already give you guys the content to to look at later. But what I am going to do is sort of to spend a few minutes of talking about why review and why plan, and then a little bit on how to do it, and then certainly Dave, at any point that you've got some color to add, let's make sure that you jump in, and any of you who've got questions or thoughts from Facebook or from the community here in Zoom, jump in and chime. But I think the biggest key is that when you hit any kind of a milestone in the year, it's always good just to step way back and say, okay, how did I do this year? And most of us tend to only look at numbers, right? Okay, I said I was going to do 24 million this year, so that means I should be at 12 million, and I'm only at 10 million, or I'm at 14 million, right? Wherever you're at. But there's other things that you want to look at, right? What else is it that I did that was successful, right? How can I learn from the other wins I have? Did I do a new Realtor campaign to go after realtors? Did I rewatch Scriptapalooza and then practice some of those scripts and try to internalize those, the whole memorize, internalize, customize piece of that? Did I do that? Like, what is it that I did successfully? What is it that I thought about doing and didn't do successfully? And you just have to back up to take time to do that, because really what you're looking for is course corrections to readjust, right? In coaching, one of the things that we use that's really like kind of old school is called a keep, start, stop, right? And that's a great way to review, right? What do I need to keep doing? What do I need to start doing? And then, gosh, what is it that I'm doing that I need to stop doing? And then I love it. One of the guys at Building Champions who does our content, Todd Mosetter, who's a genius, introduced it as a KISS: keep, improve, start, stop. He added in, hey, what is it I'm doing but I could actually improve? What could I actually get better at? And so that's probably the easiest filter to run everything through and see, where are you at? So I was on some coaching calls this week with people, and one of my guys had done a book campaign at the end of last year where he sent books to realtors and had a very intentional follow-up plan, and it was a huge success. But he stopped doing it in the first quarter, and so when we were doing his review, that was kind of an improve, right? He was already doing it. It was on the keep list, but he had just stalled out, and so it's kind of almost a restart. And so you have to think through, well, what did I do that worked that I want to get rid of? And then you're really looking for those failures, right? No one likes to talk about failures, but we all know you learn the most from, hey, where did I suck? Like what didn't go the way I thought it would go, and how can I get better, right? Hey, I lost that critical realtor that I was going after. Why? What could I have done differently? How can I improve that? And really just look through it. And I can tell you from a personal perspective, right? I spent time this week, blocked time, right? A jam session. And I just made a brain dump of the things that are on my mind that I feel like from a business perspective for both Win by Noon and for the little bit of vision planning I do for my team, that I made sure I do those things and have that on a list. And so that's the number one strategy, is to block the time, right? You've got to get time on your calendar. It can't be 15 minutes. It's got to be at least an hour, and I would recommend up to half a day on it. I'm actually going to meet with my wife this afternoon, and we're going to actually unplug for 3 hours, which is hard for her and her role. And we're going to go through all those items, right? She's doing the same thing, and we're going to really do some planning for the next 6 months, but we're going to start with, hey, where are we at? Like, what did it look like for the last 6 months? And set that time aside, a big, long jam session. You could break it into 3 1-hour chunks. It's really kind of what you need for that. And so always start with review. But the interesting thing is, review is like this with planning, because ultimately where you're always going to start that review, if you planned before, was with what your plan was for last quarter or for this year, and see how you're doing. And again, I already mentioned numbers. Numbers have to be a big part of that review, because at some point that's where the rubber hits the road, right? And so there's 2 groups of you that I'm going to talk to in just one sec after Dave chimes in. All right, Dave, you look like you're going to say something important.
Hey, Todd, I pulled my
Oh.
headset out. So that was hilarious. Anyways, guys, I would love for everybody to share in Q&A. If you're on Facebook, you can put it in the comments. What percentage of goal are you at? And let's just assume that you either track things on how many families do you serve, how many loans do you close, or a production goal. I want to close X million loans this year. Whatever the goal is, number one to you from a numbers perspective, what percent are you on plan? And by the way, I know we're midway through the year, so I'm not asking for everybody to say I'm at 50% of plan. I'm like, if your plan was to be, 50 loans by June and you're at 50 loans, you're at 100%. If you're at 60%, 60 loans, that's 20% better. You're at 120%. So, and by the way, just guess it. Even though, some of you don't even have these numbers, what percentage of plan do you think you're at? Are you at 50% of plan? You're at 70%, 100%, you're killing it, and you're 120. Put that in Q&A. Todd, I'm gonna let you keep rolling, and in a few minutes, I will bring that into the conversation. But we've already got Luke, who's at 120%. Good job, Luke.
Nice.
So keep it rolling, Todd, and I'll bring in some of those results in a minute.
Well, and so I love it, and I'm glad that some of you know that quickly where you're at, because if you don't know, right, where you're at, it's really hard to plan what to do differently. And I always am really careful of not being a broken record around the tracking piece, right? Because it really is, if you're not tracking daily, right, and then summarizing it weekly and monthly and quarterly, then it's really hard to make those course corrections, right? You guys who listen to me a lot know, I met at the end of Q1 with all the loan officers on our team, and we went through their win by noon, we went through their numbers, right? And we've been tracking it since the end of 2013. So these guys who've been on my team for a long time really know it. And one of my guys, my number one LO, he had his worst January ever. And so when we were looking at his quarter, that impacted his quarter. He's behind his number. And he said, I didn't have to say, hey, what happened? He just said, gosh, you know what? 2 weeks in Hawaii in December didn't make my dials for the month. His dials were 600. He wanted to make 600 calls in a month, or not that he wanted to, that's what he does. And he's really intentional around that. And I'll tell you that when he did his review heading into the last 2 weeks of June, a perfect example was that he actually one afternoon was a little bit worn out. It was a funny story that he told. He actually, because he knew he needed to increase his applications, because again, we're numbers driven, right? We track it month after month after month. And he was short applications, and he said, I need 3 more apps if I'm gonna actually have a big enough pipeline of apps going into the second half of the year to hit my numbers. So think about that. If you don't really know what are the numbers that are gonna drive me there, you have to start tracking in order to get there. So here's someone who looked at his numbers even before he hit the 6 month of the year part to say, how am I doing so that I can go in, because he knows we're gonna do a quarterly review. And he wanted to be on target for his quarterly review. And most people would be like, well, I'm going on vacation. In his case, he was having surgery on his hand. He had an excuse of why he could unplug, and he was tired and sick and worn out. So he took a nap, and then he got up on after his nap, and he started dialing. And he said he was going to dial till he got 3 applications. So he went into his old leads, which other people would call dead leads, and he dialed for 3 hours, took 3 applications of people who were all qualifiable, and now he's got these people moving forward because he resurrected it. He had a system where to find them and where to call. And so I'm just using that as an example for you guys to say, okay, how am I running my business? Am I running it like that and doing it? And sort of what do those tools look like? And then if you think about it, he reviewed his numbers where he was at. First off, he tracked it enough that he knew where he needed to go. Then he reviewed it, and then he made the action to get to where the plan is. And then there's always course correction, but his has been really consistent over the last number of years because he deals with the same type of realtors in a similar market. And then as your market goes like this and up and down, then you have to change, right? You need more partners. I need partners that are doing more loans, whatever's going on in your market. If you're in a tight inventory market, then, you probably need more agents to get more leads. And, all these things kind of come into play. And so let's kind of switch gears. Certainly if anyone has any review type questions, in the end, I would just say, if you haven't done it, do it. Look at what you can learn. If you're not tracking stuff, and so therefore you don't have data, start tracking. And the best time to start tracking is is today, right? Well, it was really yesterday, but it's today. And so don't worry about what you haven't done. Let's start going where you're going today.
So Todd, a thought that just hit me is it was a post I saw from Darren Hardy today. And it was, by the way, I just posted it in our Facebook group saying, if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done. So, and by the way, I mean, I think a lot of people share that, but I mean, it's especially true for me. I mean, I am so ADD that if I have a thought and I'm like, oh, I need to do this. If I don't write it down on a to-do list, if I don't put it on a schedule, it doesn't get done. So for all of you who, started this call with, I have not done my mid-year review yet, guys, schedule it. I mean, literally, you have Todd and I's support to multitask right now. Open up Outlook and schedule, 90-minute jam session where I am going to review my results. And by the way, if you don't have a plan, schedule that time, and that's where you're going to put a plan. And again, Todd's going to show us some of the, win by noon strategies and things. But, if you have win by noon, do it there. If you don't, use Evernote, use Apple Notes, use whatever note software you have, use your yellow sheet of paper and goals. These are my goals. These are my strategies. These are the results I expect. But guys, hopefully an outcome from today's mastermind will be mid-year planning. What goal are you at? By the way, Todd, we had a very large range of people giving feedback. It looks like the best anyone is doing is about 120%. If anybody is better than 120% for the year, we want to hear about it. I know when I interviewed Josh Metal in his, gratitude for greatness plan. By the way, if you did not listen to that interview, check it out. It was amazing. He's killing his plan. I mean, they're way over goal. So I know there's a lot of people over goal, but it does look like the majority of the folks are about 20% off. And then it does look like there's some people that are even 50% off of goal. FYI, Todd. So I hand it back to you. Let's talk about planning for another 5-10 minutes, and then let's jump on a few of these other topics that people have tabled today.
Sure. Let me throw one last thought in on review and plan. So, I think Dave is right. Plan a jam session. And I would tell you that if you're in a market like Phoenix, Arizona, where it's gonna be 115 degrees, today's the day to do it, right? If your agents and most of your clients are on vacation still, why not just take the rest of the day today and make it a planning day? If you've never tracked and reviewed, start with whatever data you have. You do know your number of closed loans, right? It's in your LOS. You do know the number of applications you took. It's in your LOS. You do know, hopefully you know the number of leads that you took. Maybe it's in your CRM or maybe it's in a notebook or something like that. But at a minimum, it'd be great to go, this is how many leads I took to get this many closed loans. And this is how many applications that I need to in order to get a closed loan. Because again, that's where you always start. If you can get that basic information, if you're at 50% of your goal and you want to double your business in the second half of the year, then you probably just start as a baseline, without digging deeper, there's more in there that you need to double your applications, right? Potentially, right? Because especially if you're in a tough inventory market, it's harder for your clients to get under contract. So switch gears to planning for just a minute. I'll share my screen for a moment and I will show the directions for Win by Noon. It's just the easiest thing that I've got on short notice from Dave to put together. And so, we always start every quarter with goals, right? And there's actually a year-to-date goals in Win by Noon. If I grab out a copy here, of it, of course, I'll grab out the Mortgage Coach edition, but it actually has in there, it starts off with what were your goals for the year and then how are you doing year to date, right? So we're running this and looking at it before it goes to this next page, which is would be your quarterly goals. But I'll tell you, I never start here. This scares the crap out of people. Probably should. This scares people a lot. Let's just say it that way, because if you've never done it, how are you going to plan what your activities are? And so if those of you have heard me teach it before, I actually start with the day, right? You really just want to start with planning your day, right? What does my day look like tomorrow, right? So for you guys, I would be looking at, let's just talk about Monday, right? What do I want to do on Monday? How is that going to work for me? I want to just focus on one day and make a great day, great plan for next Monday. Better would be to make a great plan for the week, right? And so again, I've got a monthly calendar that I look at, right? Like, what is my week going to look like? Because I showed it a few minutes ago, right? I mean, here was my plan for this week. You can even see I've got, Celebrate America down the middle on 4th of July. Visually look at your week, get your mind set with it. And then you're just making an action plan. You're setting your intentions for the week. The call that Dave mentioned with Josh Metal was a great call because he talked about it, right? They actually set their intentions every day as a team, right? And no surprise, they're up 50% for the year because they actually are intentional about what they do. They plan it ahead and they talk about it daily. And so you have to think about these things, right? Success leaves clues. You all know that. So then you're really going to plan out your week. What are the critical things I learned from my review that I'm not doing that I need to get into my week? And remember, oftentimes jam sessions is the driving force. I don't know a top producer, right? I don't know anyone that's doing, 50 million plus, for sure 100 million plus, who does not have jam sessions or on time built in their week, typically minimum of 3 or 4 hours, right? Josh Metal literally blocks off every Friday morning to do that, right? And so there's a reason that he continues to innovate. And there's a reason that he continues to put out good content, because instead of saying, well, when am I going to do it? He actually has it built in as a weekly ritual, right? We had a great thing on Kelly Zitlow and videos, right? So many people still want to do videos and haven't. And this was from last summer. We can post a link back into it, the group, or you can look in videos or Zitlow. But, she said, I actually do this a couple times a month where I schedule a morning and just record videos so that I can do them for the month. She's not doing them here and there randomly. It's planned out. And so you've got to think through the planning part. But when you start with, oh my gosh, I'm 50% behind for the year, what am I going to do for the next 6 months? That can be overwhelming. And so for me, I just start planning a week at a time by looking at this. I break it day by day because that's what's really important, is the daily piece of it as well, to make sure that I'm looking at it daily. And then I bring it back by reviewing it each week, right? So, one of the things with Win by Noon, and I'll show one last slide, and that you might find, really you rate yourself at the end of a week or at the end of a quarter. You're totaling up your activity. You're looking at your conversion rates, because that's where the clues come in. The clues come in not from hearing what Josh is doing or not from hearing what anyone in this group is doing. It's learning from your own data, because your business is different than theirs. And so if you can figure out truly what are the activities I need to do to get the results that I want, if your goal is to close 5 loans next month or 10 loans next month, if you don't really know how many applications do I need to get there, then it's going to be really hard to get there other than by luck. And so, of course, you could just say, push your foot on the gas and start accelerating, but I would get really granular on it. And it's hard for people to get this idea of tracking. But when I go back to my example of Mick earlier, who needs to make 150 dials a month in order to get his closed loans, I will tell you that Mick's closing 13 loans this month. And it's all a result of him being super committed to one thing, and that's just his dials, right? I've got other people who are super committed just to how many people they talk to, right? The sales manager who runs our team day to day, he's committed to talking to quality conversations over the phone or live meetings with a total of 100 people a week between clients and realtors. And so he knows that when he does that he's going to hit his number. So you just have to know, what is your number, what resonates the most with you, and then start planning it, track it daily, total it weekly, review each week, then total it monthly, spend a little more time on the monthly review, then the quarterly, mid-year review like we're doing now. And so, in the end, I think that there is opportunity for all of us. There was almost 30% of you who've done your review, and I give you guys a big virtual high five. I think that is huge. All I would say is, okay, can I improve that, right? I always feel like even today I can improve my review. Like, how can I be more prepared to come into my review? And again, I would tell you that there's a couple other things I would sort of throw out there at you, right? Number one, we already talked about it, block the time. Number two is when you're coming to the planning part in the systems piece, like what else do I need to implement in order to grow? Don't overwhelm yourself with, hey, these are the 12 videos I watched. I had a Win by Noon user that stopped by to pick up his Win by Noon the other day, and he's been in the business for over 20 years. He's doing 4 loans a month. And he told me, yeah, in the shower, I was listening to last week's Friday call. It was really great. But he said, all I seem to do is listen to these calls and I fail to implement. And that resonates with me. So the other thing is first off, if you're not doing these basics, start there. Then pick one thing. Which one of these things sounds the best to you, right? What is it that you heard in some mortgage coach call or watch some video about that you think that is the thing, and then schedule time on that, implement it, and then once it's implemented, then go to the next thing. Again, don't try to work through 3 different projects that are never going to get implemented, right? We know that done is better than perfect. And so again, these are just kind of all different things. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to invite Dave back on. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. That was a lot of rambling. So I will, by Monday, I'll have in the group a link to the deep dive I did earlier this week on it so that you guys can all have access to it. And if any of you want these instructions that I just had up for Win by Noon, let me know. I'm happy to share those as well, because it does give a little bit of written insight into what I'm talking about from a planning perspective as well.
So Todd, would you mind sharing those instructions and putting them as a file in our Facebook group? Just because that is such a, just a great playbook. Obviously, if you use Win by Noon, you can use it. But even if you don't, I think it's great leadership for everyone. Are you cool with that?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. And I would just tell you, those of you who aren't users, it's what it does talk about in there. And again, it's kind of brief, but it does talk about the structuring your week, right? It talks about the review piece. And then it has in there probably the link to sign up for the free quick start. Even if you don't use Win by Noon, you can subscribe to the quick start and it'll drip out some content over 6 days, and it'll take each of these pieces and talk about it. And they're not exclusive to using Win by Noon. These are exclusive to business planning, business reviewing. It's got a section on scripting for your Thursday calls to your realtors. It's got a scripting for your Wednesday calls to your clients. So regardless of when you do that stuff, it's all in there, and I'm happy to give it to any of you. You are my people. I will give you whatever it is you want that'll help you be more successful.
All right. So I want to share my screen, and then there's been a couple great questions that I want to jump on. Transition off of planning. Of course, if anybody has a question on planning, we'll come back to it. But I want to know what are your top strategies for lead gen? And so while we authored this, the lead conversion playbook, we want to create this, lead generation playbook for local referral-based mortgage professionals. So please, it's posted at the top of our group right now, where I said, hey, I'm writing this lead gen playbook. Share your best sources. And by the way, I'm not just looking for realtors. I'm looking for self-gen strategies too. Like my past customer database, Facebook marketing, Zillow. There's no bad ideas. I want to know, what are you doing? What is the mortgage coach community doing to generate leads? So, when you go through a planning perspective, hopefully everybody knows how many leads you need to create per week, per day, per month, per year. And what are your lead gen strategies? So please share that in this group. Now, I am going to transition to a question from Mark. Well, let me make sure I got the name right here. Mark was Mark with a W. I can't find your question right now, my friend. I do want to ask you to post that. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
He's got Mark Wolke. Sorry, Mark, if I'm butchering it. Yeah, what do you do when you have fires that come up? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, right. So no, he wants to know, what are the best strategies to get realtors? So Mark, Todd and I are going to answer this. Again, it's not a simple answer, but we're going to take a run at it because I know a lot of people have a version of this question. I do want you to post that question in our Facebook group, and I promise that I will, in comments, post some of the videos that I think are most on point. Todd, if you could get ready to answer that question, I'm going to answer it a little differently. Rather than just, here's the best strategies, 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's the scripts. I'm going to drive you into 2 videos that are both under 20 minutes. The first one is only 12 minutes, and I would say it's probably the most important, and it's this Gratitude for Greatness with Josh Bedell. Because you know what? He talks about 2 things. One, how he just stays in this state. For him, it's gratefulness, but for other people, it's just peak performance. How do you show up with a great attitude? And by the way, and you know what? Prospect. Discipline yourself to prospect for 2 hours a day. And by the way, you will just figure it out. I mean, if you could actually show up in a positive attitude and prospect for 2 hours a day to get meetings with realtors, forget about the script, forget about the strategy. You're going to have a very good result. So I'm gonna drive you into that first, and I know that's not the answer you wanted, but that is an answer. And then I'm also going to drive you into this. It's time to work harder and smarter with Jeremy Forcier. And now Jeremy actually gets into some scripts, and I'm gonna hand it off to Todd, and I'm gonna share a couple of the scripts that came out of that interview. But he talks about how he's getting meetings with realtors, what's he saying, and so you're gonna get 2 homework assignments, and then I'm gonna throw it to Todd now to answer that question however he wants to answer it. And I'm gonna, by the way, stop sharing my screen.
Well, first off, Dave, I think you're spot on. Those are 2 amazing videos. And I think it's always a challenge. It's kind of funny. I first presented sort of this these tracking ideas at Sales Mastery in 2013, I think. And I still have people who come up to me, even like as recently as last month, and say, I was there and I saw that and it changed my business. And they always comment on the fact that I said it's not sexy, right? So when you talk about Josh Metal prospecting for 2 hours a day, it's not sexy, and it's hard work, but he does it consistently and it's paying off. And I would always start there with more time on the phone. Tool that I would consider using, and I've got a discount code if anybody wants it. It's just for Phone Burner. And I know a realtor who was loan officer who was highlighted on page 73, because he told me, actually I've read it, in Bill Hart's book, White Collar Warrior, which is an amazing read, by the way. I know I'm jealous Dave listened to it. I got to listen to my buddy Bill talk through it. I'll buy it on Audible. That's another action plan. But he literally just committed to 1 hour a day of calling realtors. And so let me just sort of set the stage for it, and then I'll answer Dave's question. It's a really long answer, everyone. Sorry. $6 million this loan officer did in the first half of last year. $6 million. And keep in mind, he was like normally a $30 million producer, and he was getting ready to get a HELOC on his house so that he could pay his bills. And he had just gotten back from 2 big vacations. So again, he had an excuse, right? But he chose not to make an excuse. He got challenged by Bill to go do something he's never done, which was actually pick up the phone and call people. This is a guy who self-admittedly works 20 to 25 hours a week, which I'm a little suspect of. Some people say they work 25 hours a week. They're really working 40. I actually think this guy's working 15 to 20. However, bottom line is this: by doing one different thing, committing to 1 hour of dialing a day, he increased his business and did $36 million in the second half of last year, right? 6-fold increase in his business by just dialing. So he's the one who told me he used Phone Burner. That's why I got it and got the code thing that they gave me on it. So I've got clients now who are instituting this strategy. And now what he's done is he's actually transitioned in full disclosure. This year, he's only calling 2 days a week. So he's actually taken it from 5 days for an hour each day, and he's mushed it into 2 days where he's calling anywhere from an hour to 3 hours at a time, primarily using Phone Burner. And I'll maybe try to get him on a future call. He's going to remain nameless for now because that's how he is in the book. But I know it works. He's on track this year to increase that. But just think about that. He just changed one thing. Now I'll tell you 2 other things about it, and then I'll answer Dave's question. Number one is you're like, well, who am I going to call? All he did was go back through the last couple of years of realtors, CPAs, which is just a couple. It's mainly realtors on the list. And he went through the list of people who were on the other end of transactions. He went through the list of people who used to send him business and haven't in a while. So you have to be okay eating a little bit of crow, like, hey, I haven't talked to you in 3 years. And so he did that. But you have to plan the time. That's the review piece. So first off, he built the list. He committed to the time. He scheduled it every single day. Now he still does it. And I'll tell you that right now, because I sat next to him at a mastermind that I hosted, and he showed me his list. He's got 128 people on that list right now. He showed me his call schedule and all of that. And so I will, again, I'll commit now. I'll create some content around quote unquote his strategy and sort of how I'm seeing my clients now implement it and have success. So number one, watch those 2 videos. Number 2, plan that piece of it. Because I think if you just come up with a realtor list and start calling, like Dave said, that's your number 1 strategy. Yeah,
totally agree. And we've talked about this before, but I mean, it's just so important that you're targeted. You're not just talking to anyone and everyone. You're talking to people that are doing a level of business, a level of intention, I'm seeing, a lot of new loan officers get into the business, and they know they're young, they know they use technology well, and then they, when they're creating that realtor target list, it's around it's younger agents that are doing well. And so just, be thoughtful and intentional around who you call. And by the way, if you want to share a little more color, like, hey, I'm doing this and I'm having a challenge with it, or, I can't get anybody on the phone to talk to me, or take a meeting with me. By the way, the interview with Jeremy will help with that. I mean, here's what I think one of the best loan officers in America. But when it comes to getting and building relationships with realtors, I mean, he just doesn't have a lot of peers. I mean, he talks to so many realtors, gets so many meetings with realtors. You're literally talking about one of the best loan officers in America right now at getting meetings. And by the way, I'm just going to give you a sample of one of his scripts. Todd, can you confirm you can see the screen that I'm thumbing through?
I can see your screen you're thumbing through. There's a slight delay, I think, probably between what you're doing and what it's showing. But once you find it, it'll be there. So it's scrolling. We should be there in 30 seconds. But you start reading it, and then it'll be up in a minute.
Internet is slow. So here is a realtor objection. Jeremy calls and he said, hey, when's your next opening for a meeting? Or he sends an email or he sends a text, and the agent says, I'm busy. Which, agent's busy. And Jeremy's counter punches, that's great. I only work with busy people. When's a good time? Now, at first, everybody's kind of going, come on, but again, it's a fight. And by the way, do you think Jeremy's just going to throw that one counter punch and boom, everybody's going to go, oh, that was clever. I have time for you now. No, that's one of his counter moves. But when you listen to the interview, it's like Jeremy knows in his heart that the value that he brings is uncommon. He knows that he's delivering a total cost analysis to every family. He knows that he's using a CRM and no one does follow-up like him. He knows that, he's got this great loan process. So he shows up with tremendous confidence, and he just has counter punches with the realtor until he gets the meeting. And by the way, you don't get every meeting with every realtor you want, but if you prospect 2 hours a day, and you execute really well on the back end, you will get the meetings. That brings up one more thing, and this is another, it's not a direct answer. What's the best strategy to get more business from realtors? 1, prospect more. 2, be ready to counterpunch and fight for that meeting. And then, by the way, this is my other piece. I'm going to be interviewing Tim Brahim on Tuesday. Have a perfect loan process. People are like, what? That's not a realtor strategy. You know what? If you have a perfect loan process, your process is well documented, you execute it well, you know what? You are just going to show up different in the marketplace. And by the way, for all you new loan officers on this call, this is not like a 2-month initiative. Literally within 90 days to 6 months, you could develop a perfect loan process that 1, becomes your competitive advantage, 2, gives you the confidence to show up with realtors in an entirely different way. So to me, that's, those are like foundational strategies that if you get them right, you will get the meetings that you want. If you've got a perfect loan process that's well executed consistently, and if you have disciplined prospecting daily, 2 hours, everything else is going to take care of itself. Todd, back to you, and then let's jump on another topic.
All right, so that's huge. And I think the reason that's huge, and it really ties into our review part, right? If you're not looking at where you're great, like Jeremy knows that number 1 is he's providing great value to his clients, and that when they go with someone else, that they're not getting as good of a service as they're getting from him. And he also knows that his realtors aren't getting as good of a service. So again, if you don't have a great process that you think is world-class, if you don't have a great way of how you work with your referral partners that's world-class, that's part of this review and planning process that we talked about. Make it good. And so think about it. What is it that you learned here? So let me just give you kind of the other thing to throw in there. What is it that resonates with 1 or 2 of your realtors that you've talked to them about that's working for them? What are some strategies you've learned here? You need to think of your calling card of how you're going to go out to your agents in order to get them to engage with you? How can you add value to them? Because in the end, that's how you get the meeting, right? What Jeremy's going back to is, you know what? I got this great strategy I learned from Nicole Solari about open houses, right? He's bringing something to them because he knows that they're struggling in business right now too, and they want to get more leads. And so if you think through, what is it that you know, what have you learned from either one of your partners or on one of these calls that you can use to add value? I taught 2 webinars in the past week to Win by Noon users who each got their 10 or 12 realtors. Some of them were their best realtors. Some of them were prospects that they were trying to get in the fold, and somewhere in between. And we taught them a new tool, and now they've implemented in where they've gotten about 80% of the people at least to buy in to meet with them now on a monthly basis going forward. They're adding value. They're helping those people grow. And they just really just said, hey, I've got this great new tool that I'm using myself to plan better. I would love to share with you the realtor version. Are you interested? And they said, yes. So think about it. Like, what is it that you've learned like that you can turn around and teach to somebody else in order for them to say yes to your meeting? Because if it's like, oh, I just want to talk to you about, my business or about loan process, they're going to be like, whatever, dude, go away. But if you're like, hey, I want to help you grow your business. Hey, I want to add value. Hey, I got this new strategy. Hey, I got 3 new strategies that I'm learning that are working. That really helps. And so once you can get in with somebody, find someone that that's doing something different, meet with them, right? Someone who you can get the meeting with, right? Like I had coffee with a buddy of mine this morning who's a Tom Ferry coach, coaches 50 top agents around the country. You know what? Again, he's learning these things and he's sharing them. So those are just things in my memory bank now that I could use if I was out prospecting for a realtor and going out there. So that's my encouragement. I think we without going into boring reuse strategies, I think that's a pretty good place to start.
So I've got about 2 more minutes of answers to this question, Todd. If you could be hunting in either our LinkedIn group or in the chat in Q&A for another topic right now. So I'm going to go back and share my screen one more time, and I'm going to answer your question again. So someone said, hey, how do I, get more business from realtors? And prospect 2 hours a day, have a perfect loan process, execute well, and then, have great scripting. So I had 2 questions. I had that question and Script Palooza. I think it's the best educational event for sure that we did this year in 2018, and possibly the best educational event we've ever done at Mortgage Coach. I'll leave that to others to judge. It's certainly among my all-time favorite educational experiences at Mortgage Coach. So for those of you that asked about the scripts, I want to show you, one person said, how do I get the transcript? That was someone's question. So I want to remind you, like if you're watching our YouTube videos, first of all, if you ever get value, you watch a video and you got value from it, please like it. And if it's share worthy, or if you're someone that shares with other people, share it. But I always reference, hey, there's links down below. So when I say that, I'm referring to this part down below where, here were some webinar handouts that we had. I did transcribe this for the Mortgage Coach community. And so there is a link to the transcription of that. We uploaded it into SlideShare. So for you who just asked, hey, where's the transcript? There's the transcript. Check it out, click on it, get it. Also, one of the things that I've been trying to do is create more of these playbooks and LinkedIn articles so that we have content that's videos, and then some of the things that we think are most noteworthy, we're putting into articles. Now, this particular article, the lead conversion playbook, I mean, it's a 20 to 30 minute read. It's almost like a book. But if you notice, if you scroll to the bottom of it, I put a link to our YouTube channel. Obviously, we always want to bring on new members. Watch Script Palooza and download it. So make note when you're reading any of our LinkedIn articles, if you go to the very bottom, there's going to be a lot of value for you. So I think I answered those questions. And so, for the person that just said realtor strategies, I just come back to consume and listen to these interviews and then take notes and then practice. And I always think of practice as twofold. One, practice by going out in the marketplace and being really uncomfortable and failing. It's okay. It's the beautiful thing about life. You get second chances. And even if you show up to a realtor and you kind of have marbles in your mouth and you're not so great, Trust me, they won't remember you. You get another chance in a couple weeks. And by the way, there's more realtors to show up until you get it right. So there's training and practicing in the marketplace in a very humbling, challenging way. And then there's training and practicing in your office, role playing, which I think is a kind of a lost art and a lost discipline that not enough professional salespeople do. So that's it. We're going to change subjects now. We got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Todd, what's the next question?
We got a lot of people that are still talking about their goals and what they're doing for lead gen. There's a couple of questions just around the stuff that we've talked about. The win by noon thing, we'll get that up there. Someone's asking about phone burner. It's just a tool that you can put on your cell phone, load phones into it. So I'll just spend a minute on that one. It's an app. You load in names and phone numbers and it dials them. So it's not slide dial. You're actually it's an auto dialer. It's dialing the next person on your list. And then if you get them live, you talk to them. If you don't get them live, then you hit a button and it sends a voicemail. You can have multiple voicemails and it sends the voicemail to their voicemail and dials the next call. So it's actually still doing the voicemail piece for you so you can move faster. So it's just a time saver. I mentioned that loan officer's got 128 people in there. He doesn't call all 128 now in any given week, but he's typically calling 20 to 40 in a day. And he just throws those people into, his phone burner list. And then he just cranks through it really fast. So it's a lot faster than pecking the phone number, looking it up, leaving a voicemail each time. Could be just a custom voicemail that says, hey, it's Todd. It's, hope you had a great 4th of July. Just wanted to see if we can't just connect next week when you're back. And then my cell phone number, whatever that voicemail is. So I'll get that code up in there when we get done here as well. Mark also asked about fires, right? So, I think fires is a common question that really impacts productivity. And I'd love to hear what your answer is Dave, but I would always start off with, I always say urgent versus important. And so when someone says fire, I think you have to have your own definition as what is a fire that's going to stop me from doing my most important thing I have to do. So let's go back to the Josh Metal example that we talked about a lot, that he prospects for 2 hours a day, right? And so I promise you this, that there maybe has been a day this year where Josh had a true fire come up that he had to deal with something. And for me in the mortgage business, I can only really think of, other than a health crisis or something like that with a family member or team member, I can only think of one thing, and that's that true proverbial, the person sitting with the moving truck in their driveway and the loan isn't funding today, right? That is urgent. That's a fire. That's a problem. Most of the time, we get distracted by things that are important and we claim they're a fire and we put off our day. I promise you, when Josh gets a low appraisal, I got to imagine it happens to him too. He is not, I repeat, not eliminating his prospecting time and calling on the appraisal now. He's doing his prospecting time first. And I bet the first call he makes when prospecting time over is to the realtor, and he deals with the appraisal issue. But he doesn't put it in front of everything else because it's important but not urgent. It's not really a fire. So first off, define what a fire is for you, and when you're going to blow up your day for it, you're going to find it's not very often that you need to. And then second is that then commit that when you're going to work on those important things going forward. And if you can do that one change to your daily practice, it'll be a game changer, because most of us pick up this little electric hot box in the morning called our phone. We open our email and we let something in there that's someone else's important thing become our urgent thing when we shouldn't.
By the way, I mean, we could literally stop the whole call around that, because, let's face it, in the mortgage business, there's two types of loans. Loans with problems and loans with solved problems. I mean, that's it. They all, and so, and that is such a hallmark of top producers, is that they do not let those loan problems get in the way of their business development time, and hopefully everybody on this call, you have a rhythm of at least an hour, if not 2 hours a day, of grinding, getting after it, making calls, sending emails, however you prospect, you're doing that. And by the way, that's another thing. I see so many new loan officers that love email, text, and digital communication so much that they're not making enough phone calls. And all I can say to that is, you got to do it all. And I also see so many kind of old school traditional loan officers that are just, meeting, doing phone calls, and they're not using text and Facebook Messenger And so, I mean, the modern mortgage pro is like this, I am communicating in multi-channels all time, every day. And I'm always trying to crack the code on what is the channel that's most on point with the prospect at hand. So, some prospects are kind of text, email, phone call. Some people are phone call, email, text. Some prospects are Facebook, text, and that's it. And they're annoyed when they get on a phone call with you. So I just really recommend that everybody starts getting your head around, like when you meet with someone, just like you're trying to match their personality and you're trying to connect with them, you're trying to match what are their communication channels, number 1, 2, and 3, so that I can follow up, keep in touch, deliver value in the channels that they do life. So we are at the 10-minute mark. If there is someone that wants to be unmuted and either come in and just kind of live chat with Todd and I with a question, or if someone has something that you're really excited about and you want to share a success story with the community, bring it now. You got 10 minutes left. And Todd, while we're looking for someone to either raise their hand or ask a last question, any thoughts that you have, and I'll look for questions and I'll look for people to bring in.
Yeah, let me just throw out a suggestion from Jacob Dickerson. Those of you who haven't seen, he's been pretty involved in the community. He is new to retail origination. Was in the business before, working in a more like a refi shop call center, and I had a pleasure to have a one-on-one phone call with Jacob. So I love. Thank you, Jacob, for your interaction with our community. He said you could always record that voicemail that says, "Hey, you've reached Todd Bookspan. Today is Friday, July 6th, and I'll be tied up on my mastermind, learning and in meetings until noon. Please leave a message and I'll call you then." Or you can, throw them, "Hey, if it's urgent, call my team and they can help you," right? So you could do those messages every day. For me, I did that for a while and I kind of got tired of it, but people did appreciate that, knowing when it was that you would be able to call them back, and then knowing how to reach your team in order for your team to get there. Makes me think of some other calls that we can do around how to set up your team properly to ensure that more calls around operational things and loans in process go to them versus come to you. But that's a great suggestion. I love the idea of recording a message. It can be pretty simple that just says, I'm currently assisting clients until noon, right? Currently assisting clients is it's an old Tim Broadhurst script, right? You're always assisting a client. You're thinking about loans. That's assisting a client. You're here. You're learning how to better assist clients, and just thinking through how you can alert people of when to expect a call back from you. But you also do want to give them another urgent phone number in case they think something. Because again, if a realtor's client, if their client's wondering when the appraisal's coming back because they're uncertain of that, and they want to know, that's urgent to them at the moment because they're trying to make their client happy. So that would be, certainly a thought from Jacob's comment. So hopefully that is helpful. I guess I'd throw just a couple of other things out here as we have a couple of other minutes of things, right? Dave and I are going in the second half of the year. He and I are planning on doing a review of this call for the first 6 months. So we would love any suggestions that you guys have in the Facebook group. Prefer not to have it here in Zoom because that's temporary for us. But really, what could we do better on this call? How can we get more people? We've been pretty consistent with those of you who are showing up week in and week out. So we're super grateful that you're all here. Our goal is to continue to grow the community with the right loan officers. It's kind of funny, we don't need 20,000 members of this community. I think we get great, robust conversation. However, I run into great LOs when I'm out on the road who are like, "What's your group? What is that?" And we want to get those people in here. So if you have people in your office who you think would be great contributors to this group, we would love you to invite them in. If you have ways that you think that Dave and I could make this better, whether that's content, like topics we should talk about, whether guests we should have on, whether you want to raise your hand to be a guest, we would love that. But we're trying to figure out how we can be better for you guys. So help us help you and grow. Because ultimately in the end, what I love about this call is we get on here with a couple topics that you guys have given us in the morning or throughout the week that we want to talk about, and then it evolves naturally. And so we are working on getting some other guests back on here, some guest hosts and that kind of thing, but help us.
So guys, I'm going to post this question right now in the Facebook group. What ideas do you have to make our Facebook mastermind better, our Friday mastermind better? So boom, That is posted. If you do get value from showing up to this and you appreciate that Todd and I do this, please let us know. Go to that post, give it a like, share an idea, and share a guest. Someone that we've interviewed that you want us to bring back in on Friday, someone that we haven't interviewed, someone that we don't even know that we need to bring in. Please, if you're listening to this video, you're watching it on YouTube, like it, share it, and then go to our Facebook group and answer this question. What ideas do you have to make our Friday Mastermind better? Todd and I are committed to showing up here every Friday at 9 o'clock. And if we're not here, we make sure we have someone amazing here to own it and bring value to you. But we want to maximize the impact that we create, and we can only do that if you give us ideas and feedback. So again, can't emphasize how important it is to answer the question and let us know the value you're getting. So we are at the 5-minute mark. So far, nobody, and I'm going to quit sharing. Again, I'm going to go back into video. If anybody does jump in here, let me know. I have a quote I want to close with, Todd, but I'm going to wait until like the last minute to do it. So why don't you share a few more thoughts or answer a question from the audience, and then give me a minute to share a quote as we wrap up today's call.
I would love to do that. And one of the things I was thinking about as you were sort of talking about it, you're like, who don't we know who we should have on here? I would tell you that would be one of the greatest areas you could help us, because we know Josh and Jeremy and Danny Harani and Michelle, all the people that we have in our community that just crush it all the time. But someone in your office who's got a gift that would be great for the rest of the community to learn. I think that's takeaway number one. And takeaway number two is, I think people like Jacob and Mark who are in here asking us questions. One of the things that we did early on was we first called it like picking on people, but then we said we were empowering people, and we brought them in the call. And I would love you to be brave enough on a future call to raise your hand and say, let me come in and share something I learned, whether it's a success you had, to be braver and share a failure you had, whether it's something that you did yourself or something someone else learned, but just where you're struggling, raise your hand, and then we can all have a conversation as a community. Because I still look back personally on a lot of my favorite calls were calls where we brought someone else in to answer a question, address a challenge, whatever it was, and then they added value, whether it was for 5 minutes or for 25 minutes, and change the trajectory of the call. And those are calls that you all told me are great. So I'm just kind of thinking, sort of spitballing there as we roll and think of that. And then again, I think just go back to where we started this call. Schedule a jam session. Best time to schedule it is now, right? I mean, again, I'll tell you what's going to happen is a lot of you are already scrolling through your email while I'm talking and ready to jump in and start reacting. And so I would just think through before you pick up the phone to call that person, before you reply to email, look at that and decide if it's important or urgent, and then say, you know what, this is all important. Let me just do a jam session for an hour and get a start on the process that Dave and I talked about at the beginning, because I know with 100% certainty that you're going to learn something from that, and that can have the biggest impact on the second half of your business, more so than anything else that you can do, right? During that time, you can watch the 12-minute videos that Dave pointed out. During that time, you can read the 20 or 30 minutes it's going to take to read his latest LinkedIn article. During that time, you can reread some of the scripts and the stuff that was from Scriptapalooza. There's so much gold here, and you just have to commit to the time. So that's my last lecture and rant, Dave, because you've got a quote, which I always love as a great way to close stuff out. So,
all right. So confirm you can see my screen. So this is
your screen.
This is a quote that I posted on my personal Facebook page, which should be public. Well, I think I've reached my limit. I can't be friends with everybody. I wish I could. For all you who have asked to be my friend and I haven't accepted it, it's nothing personal. I'm just like maxed out. So I posted this, but it came from the audiobook of Bill Hart's new book, The White Collar Warrior, which I am just loving. And the quote goes like this, and I have a footnote to it that I'm going to add that I think is on point with the call. But the best of the best march through pain, rejection to make contacts, make calls, have conversations, attend events, build solid follow-up plans that generate success. It's not the flashy or the sexy, but the grinding it out day after day that separates average from exceptional. So first of all, I think that that answers a lot of questions in today's call, but I'm gonna add a couple like things to this, because I also think in today's market where you need to work hard and you need to work smart. And the smart is the total cost analysis. You know, like you need to be able to deliver a TCA. You need to be able to create a video. You need to use tools like Phone Burner. You know, so everything that Bill said, you got to do. But if you want to crush it in 2020 beyond, you need to use your CRM every day. You need to use that new point of sale app that your company's rolling out so that you have your version of Rocket Mortgage. You know, you need to create videos. After you met with a realtor, get good at some of these tech things. So you got to add some stuff to compete in 2020 and beyond, and to just kill it in this mortgage business. So hopefully this has been a valuable hour of your time. As always, I love it when you and I are both on the call together, Todd. It's been a long time, but we've both been traveling a lot. Jen and Jen had a last minute family opportunity come up, so she couldn't make it. And Michelle, I believe, is on vacation traveling. So last thoughts, we want to know who else you want to have come as a guest on this call or facilitate this call. So answer that. And with that said, this call is a wrap. Everybody have an awesome Friday.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.